Moms, are you raising your kids to believe they can create the life of their dreams? Are you living your life that way as well? Living an awakened life means more than just talking about it. Join host Debbie Pokornik on Vibrant, Powerful Moms as she shares practical tips, stories, and interviews with enlightened guests, all geared at helping you create and live an extraordinary life. It's time to stand firmly in your power and model the life you want for your kids to inherit. And it all begins now on Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Vibrant, Powerful Mom Show. I'm your host, Debbie Pokornik, and my mission is to help you shift out of whatever is holding you back so that you can create a life you love at work, at home, and at play. Today, I have Judith Tamarah on the show with me. Now, I met Judith at a virtual tea party and felt this immediate, profound connection to her energy, which I kind of take to mean one of two things at this stage in my life. Number one, that she is a person I need to invite on my show because you, my listener, even though you might not know Judith at all, are sending out these sort of beacons of desire for her message. So the universe has helped us to connect. And or number two, that she's part of my soul group. And we had already predetermined that we would meet up again in this lifetime to help each other achieve the mission that we came here to do. Now, in Judith's case, I really think that both apply. I share this with you not just because I love when I meet people like Judith, but because I think it illustrates how we are always being guided and that life is not happening to us, but for us. So part of living a vibrant, powerful life involves tuning in to these messages as they arise and taking action on them. So let me tell you a bit about Judith. Judith loves to talk about what makes an office a beautiful place. She believes that the energy and how our space feels impact our work deeply. And when our environment feels off, we don't create with the love that we're capable of. When we feel at ease, totally at home, and completely held by our office, this spills out into the lives of our clients, their clients, families, communities, and so forth, rippling out into the world. Judith holds a master's degree in interior architecture from the University of Oregon. She's certified in design psychology and is the creator of the Design Deck for Manifestation, an oracle deck used to read and design the energy of your environment. Today, I asked Judith to come and talk about the important first steps that you can take to set up your workspace so that it nourishes your natural way of working and helps you get your best work done, even when your workspace is your home and your clients are your kids. In other words, I've asked her to take her wisdom and help us apply it to being a mom. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a stay-at-home mom, or you work outside of the home before coming home to your real job. Judith, welcome to the Vibrant, Powerful Mom Show.
Thank you, Debbie.
So I always like to start by asking you to share a little bit more about yourself as it relates to today's show. So for example, are you a mom? How did you come to be doing what you do now? Now I get it, this might sound like a really big question, but what I'm really asking for here is just a few of the highlights that will help us connect to you and what you'll be sharing with us today.
Well, yes, I am a mom, and I grew up in Canada, so sometimes I'll say mom and sometimes I'll say mom. My children are just about to leave home. They're in the process of it, and this is influencing our space dramatically. As far as my background, I started out as an artist and a channeler back when I was 20. And when I was about 23, I was in graduate school in education. And I went to my first channeler, and she said, or her energy, her guides came through and said to me, when are you going to be starting the work that you actually do? So there I was in the middle of graduate school, in the middle of all that, stress and anxiety. And I realized that I was in graduate school primarily because I was afraid to do anything else. And so I basically lay on the kitchen floor for a couple of days and said, well, what am I here to do? What am I here to do? And I dropped out of graduate school, and I got this message or this information or this sense that what I was here for was environment. Like, how does the environment affect us? How does it create the reality that we want? How do we create an environment that is transformational? And from that beginning in my 20s, I've basically gone through the process of becoming an artist, then becoming a designer, then channeling the deck of cards that I use that read space, and going back to graduate school when I was 40 in interior architecture in order to understand how to articulate these sort of energetic experiences that I was having in environment in order to create the kind of transformation and transformational space that I knew was possible with environment.
I
That's it in a
love that.
nutshell. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that is a beautiful nut. I mean, really, I love how it so clearly illustrated what I was talking about in the introduction, that, you know, when you listen to the signs, when you kind of pay attention, and of course, somebody actually saying to you, when are you going to start doing what you've come here to really do, is a pretty clear sign. But, you know, it's just so interesting how you took the time to really figure out, okay, what is it? And at the start, all you knew is that it involved environment.
Yeah. And that was a time, actually, it was probably in the mid 90s where like there was a big feng shui movement. And every time I looked at the feng shui books, I'd be like, I want to understand this, but this is so not what it is that I'm here to do. It's like, that is not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to follow this particular field. And I kept looking and looking and looking and looking to see where that thing was that was the thing that I was supposed to do. And it really came to that. It's like, okay, I guess I get to invent this, you know, or create this, or let this come down to me in however form it did. And it's been a great adventure. I have to say, I'm 52 now, and this has been 30 years I've been doing this, and I never get bored. It's always fascinating to me.
It sounds very fascinating. Now, I think I want to come back to that feng shui part and talk about how what you do might be different. But maybe before we get into that, you should tell us, you know, what do you mean when you're talking about how the environment impacts us?
Well, the environment impacts us, and they're actually finding this more and more in neuroscience and environmental psychology. And my certification in design psychology is from a person who basically is a environmental psychologist and wanted to break it down into principles that would be usable on smaller spaces. So environmental psychology is used a lot in designing hospitals and schools, where you understand sort of the neuroscience of the brain and how the environment is linked in or connected to our brains. But the way that I would express it, as far as the nugget, is that our identities and our behaviors are so linked up with our environments. The way that we feel, the way that what we believe about ourselves, and how we act are so connected in our psyches and in our brains that they're not even in the same part of our brain. They're actually in the same cells. So our understanding of our brain, our understanding of our orientation and our space are linked to those early memories and identities of ourselves. So, for example, that memory that you have of making cookies with your grandmother when you're like 5, and the love that's there, and the connection and the trust that you had when when your grandmother let you slide the hot plate into the oven or out of the oven, or all of the authority that you were given by your grandmother, can't be separated out from that physical environment in that memory. So the memory is connected to the environment. And what happens is that over time, the kinds of environments that we have had our significant experiences in tend to be the environment where we feel a certain way. So if we felt a lot of trust and a lot of love in our grandmother's space, then we are likely to recreate it in our lives when we want to feel loved. Equally, if we had negative experiences, they also get linked in our brain, and they're connected to our patterns of behavior. And so as we look at our environment and the kinds of environments we create over and over again, we can decide that we want to actually reduce or eliminate some of the negative cues and increase or expand some of the positive cues. And over time, we create an environment that holds us as feeling loved, or holds us as feeling trusted, or holds us as feeling authoritative or independent, and release some of the spaces that make us feel small.
Nice. And I would imagine that at times, like for example, if you have a place, and let's just say it was your home growing up, and you could have that contradiction of both feeling loved and supported, and maybe there was something bad that happened there too,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So
Yeah.
then you play with the different things within that environment. Is that what you mean? Like to take the pieces that made you feel safe and secure and all that and make them big in your new place? Is that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
nice. Okay, so let's go back to that other question, because I feel like it fits right in here. How is this then different from Feng Shui or similar to Feng Shui?
So Feng Shui is an amazing practice and understanding. And so when I'm working with a client, sometimes it will be very obvious that I need to talk to a Feng Shui person as well. So I will talk to them about the environment and see what they say. But the way that I understand myself, my kind of energy work and their kind of energy work is a little bit like how I would understand a massage therapist or an acupuncturist. It's like I can recognize when there are issues of, say, flow, and I can and circulation, and I can understand it enough to be able to make a lot of changes myself. But there are some points where I really need to say, you really need to go to an acupuncturist, or you really need to go to a chiropractor to get this piece in place. Because what I'm doing a lot more is working. First of all, I work a lot with the psychology and the energy of the objects. So, for example, the grandmother's chair and what the grandmother's chair in your office brings into your space, or the memory that you have of this beautiful experience you had in India, and how do I bring the colors into that space. So it's very personal. It's very specific to the energy and the experience and the psychology of the individual. Feng Shui, I think, there's more of there's a set of rules, there are a set of
Right.
understandings. And it's what I love about Feng Shui, and I actually do with my work as well, but in a very different way, is that Feng Shui is trying to orient you and place you into a landscape that they consider culturally positive. So they're setting it up so that you've got security at your back and movement at your front, and that your south door is in alignment with the compass. And how do you plug your specific house into, and your specific environment into, this larger cosmic landscape? And I think that's the essence, in a lot of ways, of most of the geomantic practices, whether it's the Indian Vastu or a Native American or even a Western culture. I mean, we all have ways of understanding what is a beneficial, positive environment and what isn't a beneficial, positive environment. When I'm working with it, I also am looking at how you're plugging your environment into a beneficial, positive environment, But what I am looking at is sort of this grid or system or network of the earth. So when I'm working with a person and I'm specifically working with their energy of the environment, I'm looking at old patterns that might be held in the earth or in the material of the house. So for example, if there has been, if you have moved into a house where there was a lot of, like say there was domestic abuse, or there was a tragedy of some point, and the people that had lived there before you hadn't really been able to sort of take responsibility for that, the earth and the material of the house tends to hold it. And when another person moves in, we can end up stepping into sort of the residue of that pattern, sort of allowing it to express itself. And so you might walk into a house and I don't know why I'm acting this way, but I'm feeling really uncomfortable, or I'm feeling really agitated. And part of that is like sort of the residue of past experiences in that house. But the earth itself has this beautiful, energetic, magnetic grid. And what I do is I am removing that residue and tucking the house back into connection with the earth so that the energy of the planet comes up through the space and helps support us in whatever we're doing.
So that, I would imagine, is more than just smudging.
Yes, it is. It is more. And because I work holistically, I'm working with the psychology of the individual, the energy of the house, their work or their final goal, like their highest purpose or highest vision, their relationships with their family, all of that stuff. And I'm looking at how all of those pieces come together, and how do I create an environment in which they are held and in which they can fully express themselves.
Right. Okay. So I get it that this is a very individual thing then, and so it might be a bit tough, but I'm hoping you could share some kind of tips at how a listener could start to create an environment that supports them, whether they're, working in an office in their home, or whether they're at home with their kids and that is their main job. Can you give a few tips of things they might do? Okay, awesome.
Absolutely. And actually, one of those things that I'm hoping I'll be able to give out to your audience is the noticing practice. And it's a fundamental foundational practice. And it's really, really easy. And I call it a practice as well because it's not just like a one and done thing. It's one of those things that you incorporate into sort of your daily awareness and you bring out into the world. So, for example, say you're in a household and you want a more harmonious space. You want the feeling of harmony, but your house or the dynamics of your house are not feeling harmonious to you. Hold that thought of harmony and how that feels to you in your body and in your mind, and then go out into the world and find places that you feel harmonious in. It could be a museum, it could be a coffee shop, it could be a walk in a park, any number of things. Just hold it in your mind, and when you're going through life, just start noticing, oh, I'm feeling suddenly harmonious. Or an alternative is to think back in through your past to places and times where you have felt that feeling of harmony. When you have identified a space where you're feeling this harmonious experience, look around you or remember around you the materials, the scents, the sounds, the feeling, the textures, all of those things, and make it a full sense experience. And start cataloging those, start writing those down in a journal. And over time, you'll actually start seeing patterns. So for example, I took this through with one of my clients and in one of my classes. And she started doing this, and she started noticing that consistently there were these memories of being in retreat spaces or gardens that came up over and over and over again. And so that materiality of rocks and plants and dirt and winding paths, all of those things were things that she started to bring into her office consciously. So the retreat space, like going out into the woods to like a community of people where everyone's focused on something that they're all fascinated with, that brought her the feeling that she wanted in her office. And so anyone can do this. It's like start creating basically what I call a material language of what makes you feel spacious or harmonious or grounded or settled, and bring those materials into your environment.
Nice. It's interesting, the timing of things. My husband and I were we went to visit a place on the weekend, and we stayed at an Airbnb. And we walked into this place, and it was very modern, I'll say. It was chairs, they weren't necessarily hard chairs, but they were white chairs and they were black chairs, and it was very cool looking. And I walked in and I thought, 2 days we're here.
Totally. Right.
And it wasn't the person's fault, but to me, I like warmth. I like comfy. I like cozy. I like I like nature around me. I don't like cold, sterile, clean. I mean, I like clean, but you know what I mean? That clean look. So it's interesting that we would happen to be talking about this right after, because it wasn't the place that I didn't like, the town. It was the actual place we stayed at.
Right.
So, okay. So those are some things they can do, and they will be able to get that practice. I'm going to give them a link to that at the end of the show. We are just zipping through our time here. So I'm wondering if we can talk about self-care a little bit and how that connects with the environment.
So one of the things that I talk about is that if you create a space for something, that helps it exist. So a lot of times if you set up, I mean, this sounds really obvious and logical, but I know we're at the end, so I'll be really quick. But if you haven't actually got the space for self-care, then you're not actually going to be able to do it. So one of the things I suggest to people who want self-care routinely to happen in their space is to evaluate the actions that they need to take, the qualities of the space they need to have for that to happen, and to put it in place. So if you need to do yoga, find that 10 by 10 foot little bit of space. What kind of qualities, just like the noticing practice, what kind of qualities need to be there to support you psychologically and functionally, and put it in place. And that is the thing that supports self-care, to have that routine happen automatically.
Nice. And that's why when you can set up a little room with maybe your altar in it, or all of your meditation things, your cushions, all of that around, you're much more likely to use it.
Exactly. But it's taking it a little bit farther, because a lot of the time, especially if we have children, we're like, we don't have that level of space.
Right.
So getting very, very clear about what is actually required, like what is the minimum and what is the essential aspects. The minimum might not be like, I need this whole, room. The minimum might be, I need the smell of lemon.
Yes.
And
that's probably what it takes, just having a bath and the time to yourself to have a bath, which is very hard when your kids are young.
Absolutely.
to making it an oasis, right? Bringing in that candle, having a maybe lavender essential oil, or, the lower lighting. That's what makes it into that oasis type experience.
Exactly. Yes. Nice. And it's a psychological cue for us.
Nice. There is so much more that I know we can talk about here. We have just barely touched the surface, but I want to make sure that people know how to find out more about you. Okay. So you can find out more about Judith by visiting her website at Judith, let me see if I can get it correct, Tamarah.com. Yep. That is JudithTamarah.com. And as usual, this website will be posted on my own blog that will be linked to the show. So that's at vibrantpowerfulmoms.com. Now, if you go there before January 2nd, 2020, you can sign up for her free offer, which is focused on clearing and grounding the energy of your workspace or office in preparation for the new year. So I'm definitely looking forward to participating in that, and I encourage you to get there and take a look at it too. Now, if you've already missed that date, or even if you haven't, you can go to bit.ly/noticing practice gift. So that's bit.ly/noticing practice gift, all one word. And you get the handy little exercise that Judith was talking about for tuning into the things that will help you create a space that you love, and also get you on Judith's mailing list for her monthly new moon readings using her design deck. Now, Judith, we are at the last 30 seconds or so, but is there anything you'd like to add to that, or maybe even a final nugget that you'd like to share for our listeners?
I think that the thing that's the most important for space and understanding space and environment is to actually trust yourself. Trust the things that you actually feel. And because there are lots and lots of shoulds out there about how your space is supposed to be. And the more that you sink into trusting yourself, the more you'll actually automatically start aligning the space with who you are.
Beautiful. I totally agree with that. Thank you so much, Judith, for coming on today's show and sharing so many great ideas with us. And of course, a big thank you to you, our listeners. With much respect for you and the journey you are on, this is Debbie Pokornik and her guest, Judith Tamarah, wishing you a vibrant and powerful day.
You've been listening to Vibrant, Powerful Moms with host Debbie Pokornik. If you've enjoyed this show, please share it with others to help spread the love. To find out more about Debbie, pick up free offers from the show, and listen to previous episodes, visit vibrantpowerfulmoms.com.